owning one Bitcoin is going to be absolutely legendary. I think the thought that anyone can own one Bitcoin, but not everyone, is so profound. I was thinking about it just earlier today, and I wanted to get your input on that thought. So, the way that I see it, anybody can create the value required to own one Bitcoin, but there's only 21 million Bitcoin. There's 8 billion people on Earth, but only 21 million Bitcoin. So what that means is 600 people are chasing each Bitcoin in existence. So what that means is that anybody can create the value wherever they live, whichever continent they live in. They can create the value to accumulate one Bitcoin, but not everybody. What are your thoughts on that?
I love it. I think we're at a point right now. We're 16 years into this Bitcoin thing, and I don't think we've fully appreciated how scarce Bitcoin is. Truly, we kind of have an idea. Everybody knows there's 21 million Bitcoin that will ever exist. There's about 19 and a half that have been mined so far and are in circulation for people to buy and transact with. But we haven't gotten to the point yet where people really understand how scarce this is. And so when you're thinking about Bitcoin itself and sats, one of the things that's really helped me in my accumulation phase of Bitcoin, as I call it right now, is every time you get a sat or trade some fake dollars for Bitcoin, some fiat for Bitcoin, those are pieces of a very finite pie that if you hold on to those and protect those properly, nobody can take those from you. What we've talked about Bitcoin being a good battery and a good store of value, and you put that UTXO into time and it's going to stay there without any leaks in it. But even just thinking about sats is like a very finite piece of the pie that nobody can create more of or replicate. And once you have that, that's that. We've never had anything like that before, so it's hard for us and me to kind of comprehend that, but we haven't got to absolute scarcity yet. So I think in this clip today we're going to talk about ways to obtain Bitcoin and kind of share our thoughts on each one differently. But what are your thoughts, Forrest?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate again. I mean, you guys have both said it, but this is the first time we've seen absolute scarcity. I think that's really shouldn't be understated. It's really a revolutionary idea to have something with absolute scarcity. And just as George said, you can own a little piece of the pie, and you can really own it. You know, when you have your private keys, you're the only one with control over that asset. And you know, I mean, you could argue like there's certain other things that are finite, like maybe, the Mona Lisa, right? There's only one Mona Lisa, but it's not a monetary asset. You can't transfer the Mona Lisa. You can't make it more divisible. It's the properties of Bitcoin being absolutely scarce is just an incredible innovation, really. And yeah, I mean, you know, if you fully understand that, you're going to want to say, okay, well, I want a piece of that absolute scarcity because I recognize that other people are going to eventually figure out what this is and want it as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of different things that you got to learn with Bitcoin, but once you learn those things, you start to think, okay, how can I acquire more of it? And that's what we hope to answer here. So obviously one thing you can do is you can work, right? You can mine Bitcoin by mining fiat. You can go to your job, you can run your business, you can acquire some fiat while it still has some value against Bitcoin, and you can swap it into this finite asset, which is unlike anything else we've seen. That would be the first step, right? Is to acquire some is to put some value into the world and acquire Bitcoin with that.
Yeah, I think the second best one would probably be to sell some of your assets from the 20th century. Because just to put into context, Fidelity says that Bitcoin is going to $1 billion by 2040, which is insane. And when you look at it from that perspective, you know that owning one Bitcoin is going to be legendary, but so is owning zero point 0.1, owning 0.01. One Bitcoin is going to be, so if Bitcoin goes to $1 billion, one Bitcoin is worth $1 billion. 0.1 Bitcoin is worth 100 million. So no matter how much of your assets you sell, those assets are they're going to trend to zero in terms of Bitcoin until they barely buy anything. So owning that one Bitcoin now may be possible, but I think there's going to be people who have $100 million portfolios that won't be able to buy one whole Bitcoin at some point.
Yeah. When you're thinking about selling assets, this is something I just kind of came up with recently here after seeing what the US government has been doing with their own strategic reserve. I think people kind of need to think about themselves as the US government and start building your own strategic reserve in Bitcoin. And if you look at how the US is approaching it right now, they're saying, you know what, we're going to do this all in a budget neutral way. That's the wording that they've been using there, right? So they're doing it without the added cost to the taxpayer. And if you think about that from your own terms, what does that mean? It means you don't have to go out and get a second job. You don't have to go out and work harder, but look at the assets that you have right now, just like the US is doing. They're looking at their gold reserves. They're looking at some other asset, cheese. So take a walk around your house and just look for some of these assets that you can sell to get Bitcoin in a budget neutral way.
And that would also include reducing expenses as
Right.
well, to lower or to, like that's kind of the first step. If you're trying to figure out your own personal finances, you're going to want to create like an assets and liability chart where you have your assets, and that might include your income, right? Under there, and you have your liabilities. That's going to be your rent, mortgage, car loan, gas, food, Netflix subscription, whatever, right? If you look on there and you say, you know what, I don't need to be subscribed to 30 different basically TV channels at this point. I can cut a few of those, and that means I can put some of that into this asset that really only has one direction to go, because again, if we go back to that limited supply and we understand that there's three variables with anything, which is supply, demand, and then the other one, because the supply is fixed, right? You can't increase the amount of Bitcoin that get mined. And then the demand is increasing as people recognize what this asset is. The only other variable that can move is price. And so it's baked in basically to the programming of Bitcoin for price to go up. That's what people say, number go up technology. It's because it's the first thing to not increase supply when there's more demand for it. Everything else increases supply when there's more demand until it reaches some sort of equilibrium. With Bitcoin, it doesn't do that. So if you recognize that and you say, okay, well, I can cut, it's going to reframe your mind. It's going to rewire your brain a little bit, and you're going to start to be like, what can I save? What can I not spend money on so that I can put this money into something that is totally finite, like Bitcoin?
Yeah, one thing that I used to talk about when I was posting a lot about personal finance is how if you have, let's say, 5 streaming services, you're probably not going to use them all at the same time. I mean, this is just such a small change, but it can add up so quickly. So let's say you have these 5 streaming services, you're paying $20 each. You're not going to use all of them at the same time. You probably shouldn't be using them all at. I mean, you don't need all of them. You can get entertainment through Instagram, through Twitter, through YouTube. Use those as your entertainment sources. But if you have 5, get rid of 4 of them. Right? Maybe you save $80 a month. Right? That $80 goes into Bitcoin. You're getting almost 100,000 satoshis every single month until Bitcoin's price goes up. But you're getting that boost in your satoshis that you otherwise would never have seen. And in the future, you can use those satoshis to pay for the extra streaming services that you really want, because at that point Bitcoin's price is going to increase so much, it's going to that delaying gratification and not using all of those streaming services is eventually going to mean that you can use more streaming services, which
You-
if you give it time to, you can have as much fun with this as you want. If you delay a vacation, for example, delay a vacation for a year, maybe next year you'll be able to buy 4 vacations with the same amount of money. Delay a vacation for 5 years, maybe you'll be able to buy 10 vacations. But that's the thing. It's all about delay gratification, selling your assets, selling the things that you don't need, making sure that you can live in the moment and don't feel like you deprive yourself, but also save for the future. Find that balance. That's the key.
Yes, that's great advice, Rajat. I think the first thing I thought of when you guys were going through that is Sailors talked about from now until 2035. That's kind of the Bitcoin gold rush here. So when you're thinking about these things, yes, it might only be $10 a month, but you compound that over 10 years and think about the amount of sats that you're going to be able to get for that streaming service that you cut out. So whenever you're thinking about accumulating more Bitcoin, take a very long-term view of this. Think in 10 years, not in like 10 days, how much you can get, or even 10 months, but like from now until 2035, make it your priority just to get as much as you can of it and compound it. Even if it is only 10,000 sats a month, over 10 years, that's a significant amount of Bitcoin that you're going to have. And Rajat, you were talking about vacations and stuff, and being Maple Bitcoin here from Canada, this is something that I has been sitting by my, I don't know if you guys can see it or not, by my desk here for a little while now. It's an Austin Matthews rookie card. And I don't love Austin Matthews myself. This is something I've had. Whoa. But the point here is that I wanted to, this has been sitting right beside my desk here for about a year now, or two maybe. And I've been just delaying, listing it on YouTube. And if I would have sold this when I first brought it up into my office now, I probably would have got 3 or 4 times the amount of Bitcoin. Because that was the idea. I was going to sell this card, buy Bitcoin. And it's just been going down and down and down in terms of sats. And the longer I wait to sell this thing, the less Bitcoin I'm going to get when I sell it. So yes, think long-term, but also there should be some sort of sense of urgency here for people.
Yeah, and I wanted to, I just actually wanted to bring the supply schedule that I keep telling people about back to stage. So if we think about, let's say, if somebody can sell something worth $100 in, so today you can get how much is $100? How many 100 Canadian dollars worth in terms
That
of
should
sales?
be 10,000. Oh, 100,000 sats.
100,000 sats. Okay, so
less than that, probably 70 or 80,000 sats.
In 2072, 76,000 sats is going to be the block reward. Right? So, I mean, it may not seem like much today, but you're doing this for your kids, your grandkids, your great grandkids. Like, if you can set them up, if you can give them this opportunity to have, that's line 19 there. If you can give them that opportunity and you can build up their wallet, why not? Right? You're setting them up. You're setting them up for the future, for literally forever, by buying these tiny amounts. And think about it, you're building a legacy that's never going to be forgotten.
So that block reward there, Rajat, you said that that's going to be the block equivalent to the block reward in 2076, 72?
72. So 80,000 satoshis. We can see that here. So I'll just show you. So block subsidy is column D.
Which is what though? In today's dollars, that's about $300,000 worth of purchasing power. That's the block reward today, right? In US dollars, about 300,000 Bitcoin. That's the block reward today.
It's 3.125 Bitcoin. That's about 300,000.
Yeah. It's crazy that you can buy an entire block reward for, $100, right? And if you think about all of the infrastructure and costs that will still be going into mining, like it's still going to take the same amount of electricity, if not more, right? We've seen hash rate increase over time. All the warehousing, the hash boards themselves, like the miners, all of that is still going to be there, and it's all going to be chasing that relatively small amount of sats. It seems like small amount today. And they're still going to chase that, and it's going to be worth it for them to chase that because number has to go up. And that's what we're going to see. So you could buy, an entire block reward from 2072 for $100 today. Like, it's insane. A no-brainer.
And hopefully the boys will still be around by then. Hopefully everybody watching this will still be around by then. Like we're not talking something that's 500 years away. Like we're talking something that's like hopefully within our lifetime here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like the assets around the house. That's the memberships. But like, think about baby boomers right now. I think that they're in a much better spot for the ones who do understand what's happening here. They have the ability to move real estate, stocks, bonds, things that they've been holding on to for a long time. Like, now is the time to be doing that. Unfortunately, people our age, like millennials, Gen X, we don't have those assets that we can just swap for Bitcoin right now. So I think that if anybody here, baby boomers have a huge advantage of being one of those people that can actually get to 1 Bitcoin.
Yeah. I think one of the problems though is that a lot of people are just so tied into the assets that they have that they can't change their minds. Like, a lot of baby boomers, they're smart enough to know what finance is. They're smart enough to know what money is. They know that the system is designed to screw over future generations. Not all of them. I'm not saying that everybody has bad intentions here, but some of them do. And the thing is that if they don't relinquish that power, if they don't give away those assets, then Bitcoin is that silent tax that's going to take their assets from them, right? So right now they can hold on to all this wealth, they can keep holding on to it. It's like like inflation was designed to take value away from the poor. Bitcoin is designed to take value away from the rich, right? It's another system where you can, if you learn what this is, and if you put in the time to understand where it's going, this thing is going to completely change your life, because it's going to move wealth from the billionaires over to the people who have nothing today, right? If you have some Bitcoin though, you're going to be part of that wealth transfer.
So if you're not a baby boomer watching this, the one thing you could do in this sense is start working on your parents. Start sending them some Maple Bitcoin videos. Start just doing something at least to introduce the idea of, maybe it doesn't have to be 100% of your assets, but like, let's start with 5. Let's keep learning about it. Let's get to 10, because eventually those assets are going to shift from the baby boomers to the Gen X and millennials. It's just how much value they actually want to lose during that process.
Yeah. And Bitcoin isn't a yield generating asset. So I think baby boomers, they should consider volatility risk based on their their lifespan and their goals, right? If they want to retire, if they are retired, I think it doesn't really make sense for them to just fully 100% pour it into Bitcoin in most cases. I mean, maybe if their goal was just to pass on generational wealth, then yeah, I think it would make sense. But for a lot of them, I think, diversification is like so key for older generations. So just consider that. But personal finance is personal for a reason, and they should figure out what best suits them. But they do have the opportunity of being able to sell assets, which was number 2 on our list for acquiring more Bitcoin.
And then that third option is that we thought of. It's to take a loan. So what you can do is you can borrow against your assets. I know a lot of people, they have a significant amount of capital gains, and they don't want to pay the taxes on them. So what you can do is you can use the financial system, the fiat currency financial system, to your advantage. You can basically do a speculative attack on fiat by borrowing fiat, creating it out of thin air, and then buying Bitcoin with it. All you're going to be doing is you're going to be moving more wealth from the fiat currency system into Bitcoin. This wealth that was created out of nothing, you're going to be using it to buy something that takes a lot of time, energy, and effort to create. So you're just moving that, again, like I said, you're moving that wealth from the fiat currency system. You're taking it from people who want to keep it in the fiat currency system, and you're moving it into Bitcoin.
Yeah, like you could literally consider, I mean, if you have assets that you can loan against, like you could do a home equity line of credit and get like insane rates compared to, a regular line of credit that's unsecured by some sort of asset. And you're able to bring all of this fiat into your possession and into this exact moment in time. You're able to bring that from the future into now and buy Bitcoin with it, which will appreciate over time. It's a yeah, Rajat said it perfectly with it. It's kind of an arbitrage. You're taking fake money and buying real money. And you can do that at varying different degrees of success based on what you have available. But and that's another thing too. You're going to want to just like figure out your risk tolerance, your income, your ability to pay off these loans. There's going to be interest monthly or however it's structured. So that's all to be considered. But it has proved to be a successful strategy for people over time. People have done this. They've mortgaged their home. They've taken lines of credit. They've done all sorts of things and have been successful. If you can broaden your time horizon long enough with a loan, that's the key, right? With Bitcoin, we need to have a long-term view of this. And the potential of taking on leverage or loan is to lower that time horizon, right? That has the possibility of doing that because there's terms within there. Maybe it's 3 years, 4 years. You got to pay that loan back, whatever. There's interest. That's all decreasing your time horizon. So that is something you need to manage. But if you structure it well enough, it does have a long enough period to be able to go through these cycles that Bitcoin goes through, and the volatility is to the upside in the long term.
Yeah, like none of us have crystal balls here. I think the one thing that we can rely on, though, is the fact that if you've bought Bitcoin and held on to it for 4 years, you've never lost. You've never been in a worse position if you bought it and held for 4 years. So when Forrest is talking about like the terms of the loans, I think that that's what you have to keep in mind. You have to be able to weather this throughout, regardless of what kind of debt it is, whether it's a mortgage, refinance, line of credit. Obviously, we're not going to tell people to get a credit card and buy Bitcoin because that's not the play here. But if you can get something that's has a term of like 5-10 years, like this is kind of how you have to think about it. Like, look at your rate, look how much interest you're paying per year. Like the percentage may be 5, 6, 7%. That's how much you're paying out. But Bitcoin return, like the compound annual growth rate on Bitcoin has been about 60% year over year for the last decade. So that's a huge variance there. You're paying 5, you're getting 60 back. That's the spread here. So we're not telling people to go out and take out a whole bunch of debt and buy Bitcoin, but there is a responsible level of debt, I think, that you can have. And speaking personally, this is something that I've looked into myself and I've spoke with my bank about, and they'll refinance, or my bank will anyways. They don't really care what the proceeds are going to. I told them about Bitcoin. They're like, I don't care what it's for. Your house is worth this much. This is how much equity you have in it. You can do whatever the heck you want with that. And from my perspective, like worst case here, Bitcoin goes to zero and I have to pay another 5 years on my mortgage that I probably would have been trading up and buy a new house for anyways in the future. So like the risk reward here is just so insane. What do they call it? The asymmetrical bet of the century. Like that's kind of how I see it right now.
Yeah. The one thing that I think that people should be considering though is make sure you don't sell early. Let's say, for example, if Bitcoin's price falls, you're going to see those dips. You're going to see it drop 30, 40, 50%. Don't get shaken out. That's the key. It's not going down to zero. So don't have that fear and think, see this, the way that most people think is when they have a loan to buy an asset, they lose because they think that if the price of the asset starts dropping, then they're going to be left with nothing and they're going to have to owe that debt no matter what, right?
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, they take on $20,000 worth of debt, they buy $20,000 of Bitcoin, price of Bitcoin drops to, the value of the Bitcoin that they have drops to, let's say, $12,000, and they think, I don't want to be in debt. I don't want to have $20,000 worth of debt. So I'll sell some of the Bitcoin and I will put that money into my debt and I'll only owe 8,000. But what's going to happen is that value of that Bitcoin is going to go back up to 20,000. You're going to feel like an idiot. Then it's going to go up even more. It's going to go up to 40,000. You're going to feel even stupider. Then it's going to go up to 80,000. You're going to feel even stupider than that. And you're going to just keep having that regret, and you're going to keep having that regret basically forever. And you're going to hate Bitcoin because you sold early. It's the root cause of it. It's the emotion is going to kill you. So don't let that happen. Don't let it play with your mind. Don't let it destroy your sanity. Make sure that you make a decision that you're okay with. Bitcoin will fall. I'm telling you, you buy your Bitcoin, next day it's going to drop 10%. Then the next day it's going to drop another 10%. No matter what happens, that's always going to happen. Just sit back, relax, study the thing, keep holding. Eventually you'll be fine. It'll drop a little bit, then it'll come back. Then it'll drop a little bit, it'll come back. Then it'll drop a little bit. Sometimes there's extended bear markets. You have to be able to get through those. If you don't, you're not going to make it.
Bitcoin is hard to hold on to when it goes down, and it's hard to hold on to when it goes up. There's a lot of temptation to sell in either case. And when you're taking on a loan to buy that Bitcoin, it might add additional stress. And if you're emotional about money, if you don't have the conviction around Bitcoin, you just think this is like a get rich quick thing and you're going to sell the top, you're going to buy the bottom, it's not going to work for you. Like that isn't the route to go. Those other two ways, going to work and taking a little bit of that extra money that you make from your job or selling some extra assets you have to buy Bitcoin, that's going to be a less emotional trip for you. So maybe start there. This is maybe for more advanced people, but
I'd
still
say
is an option.
I'd say do the overtime instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or sell the Austin Matthews card in your house.
Oh yeah, that works
Yeah,
too.
or I got the Blaine's Charizard I'm looking to sell. So if anyone
Oh.
wants some Pokemon cards, I'm
Well,
gonna
you'll
sell
probably
have
get
those.
a
more than me with a fictional character. I don't know how that works out, but yeah, I think the Charizard's worth a little bit more than
I have a
Austin
Carey
Matthews.
Price rookie card.
So,
Pretty cool.
anyways, like let's start wrapping this up, boys. One BTC is going to absolutely be legendary. I think if you're at that point of understanding, if you're thinking about getting a loan for your Bitcoin, you probably have a significant amount. You should be looking at focusing on securing that too, because it doesn't really matter how much Bitcoin you have, how much you're stacking on top of your foundation. If it sucks, it's not going to matter anyways. So yes, pay attention to the accumulation, but also pay attention to securing that Bitcoin properly. And keep in mind that we've talked about it before, but there's 63 million millionaires, 21 million Bitcoin. So not only will the average people not be able to afford one Bitcoin, but neither will every millionaire in fiat right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a ton of Bitcoin being held. Like certain people and individuals, corporations, nations, they all have more than one Bitcoin. So there's even less than that available. So it's
Exactly.
an incredibly scarce asset. Yeah, if you guys want, if you're watching this and you got something from it, there's a QR code right here. You can use a Lightning wallet. You can actually scan that and just send us some sats for the video. Goes towards the group Lambo. It's the Lambo Fund. And yeah, I mean, anything else before we go here, guys, or that's it, I guess.
Just on
Catching up
that, I
here.
would say that this channel's somewhat new. We're going to be posting a couple of videos every week. We're going to be doing a live stream on Friday. That QR code, wherever it is over there, is going to be there throughout. So it's kind of our way. We're not going to be out here looking for a bunch of sponsors. We're not going to be feeding a bunch of ads down your throat. So that's kind of our way of, if you want to support the show and support the Lambo Fund here, that's the easiest way to do it. Plus, you learn a little bit learning Lightning. And eventually we'll probably have like an on-chain address for the hardcore people out there who want to send a bigger UTXO. But for now, send a couple sats, send a couple thousand. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome.
Okay. So Rajat, any closing words or do we wrap her up?
One Bitcoin is going to be legendary. Owning one Bitcoin is going to get you so far. I think that owning one Bitcoin is going to get you to retirement a lot sooner than owning 5-10 houses.
100%. So sell your
I
Austin
agree.
Matthews card, buy some Bitcoin, and then in 10 years, you can buy 100 Matthews cards if you want to. That's the idea here. So thanks, fellas. We'll catch you on the next one.